Hey, Blake T. Wild here, and I'm talking about Ultimate Spider-Man today. It's seemingly everyone's favorite series that I post on the channel, and for good reason, too. It's a great comics series. It's one of, if not the best, Spider-Man comics there is. But before I can continue covering Ultimate Spider-Man, I have to go back and address a very certain Ultimate Spidey tale that's really not collected anywhere. At least, I don't think. It's an issue of Ultimate Team-Up where Spider-Man fights the Lizard with Man-Thing. That's right, Ultimate Man-Thing is a thing, and he's pretty much just the normal Man-Thing. They didn't care enough about Man-Thing to recreate him in some strange, interesting new way for the Ultimate Universe, so he's just kind of there. And because I'm covering this, that means we gotta go back. Way back. I'm talking the bygone era of between Volumes 1 and Volumes 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man. So now when you go to my Ultimate Spider-Man playlist on the channel, that's right where this little comic is going to be situated. And of course, leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this, and leave suggestions in the comments for what comics I should be covering in the future. Released in 2002, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by John Totleben and Ron Randall. This is Ultimate Marvel Team-Up, Spider-Man and Man-Thing. Spider-Man does whatever and the book actually begins with a brief write-up of who Man-Thing and Spider-Man are, for anyone unaware.
Scientist Ted Sallis is forced to inject himself with an untested serum that enemy agents were trying to steal from him. This untested serum transforms Sallis into a mindless, shambling creature made of swamp and sewer matter, possessed with an unexplainable empathic power that causes him to be attracted to the fear of others. The creature, now known as Man-Thing, prowls the sewers and waterways of America, a danger to those he comes in contact with, for whatever knows fear burns at the touch of the Man-Thing.
You know who Spider-Man is. The story begins in NYC as a woman is robbed at gunpoint by two junkies. They run off to a back lot and prepare to make their getaway into the sewers. The younger of the duo says that he's unsure about this part of the plan after he's heard all of the stories about monstrous alligators and horrible worm parasite men. And he suggests that they just take the subway. But the older man calls him a wuss and says that there's nothing to worry about. And then he's dragged down into the darkness. The younger man hears panic splashing and then silence. And as he steps slowly to the manhole, a reptilian eye shimmers against the sunlight. Flashback time! Dr. Curt Conners is working in a lab at whatever university he teaches at. I think it's Empire State University. The dean of the uni walks in and, in front of everyone, announces to Conners that the funding for his project has been cut. The dean says that attendance is down at the school and Conners' work is just taking too long and they don't have enough capital. Curt then starts rambling, and Curt just begins yelling and ranting about how reptilian DNA has a number of benefits that could be provided to humans through genetics, like how the lizard releases its tail and is able to grow it back, or how the male lizard holds the female's head in its mouth as it deposits sperm deep within its cloaca, and the lizard's hooked, spinal-knobbed genitals. Think of the genitals! The dean tells him to calm his ass down and says that after 5 years of research, they have nothing to show for it. And the dean says that the only reason Curt was actually able to continue the project is because of his personal situation. He says that they hope to keep him on staff because he's a great professor, but the project just doesn't have the results to continue. Later that night, after a very large bottle of booze, he is probably as drunk as I was when I watched James Cameron's Avatar and did a drinking game to go along with it. Alright, yeah, and then we get the fucking big climax. Who gives a shit? Not this guy who has two thumbs and doesn't care about the climax of Avatar. This guy! Jake Sully, I love you, man. I love you, Jake Sully. You're a hero. I'm not just saying that because I've Drake this much. I love you, Jake. You're the best protagonist in any film that has ever existed. Check that video out and subscribe to my Patreon for the complete 3-hour-long video commentary track. Anyway, a couple of his students come by and tell him how sorry they are. But Conners tells them that the project isn't over. They are conducting Phase 7, Human Trials. And this right here is why you get John fucking Toddleben on a comic. The 13 pages leading up to this just look like a normal fucking book. Toddleben does this. You'll probably mostly know him, he's most well known, I'd imagine, from his time on Saga of Swamp Thing. You know, the Alan Moore classic. He and Steve Bissette were like the main artists on that series. The next night at the Parker residence, mild-mannered teenage nerd Peter Parker watches the local news as a report from a student at the Empire State University discusses her experience of a professor whose experiment turned himself into a monster. Young Peter tells his Aunt May that he's going out for a bike ride, when in reality, he is crusading the streets of New York against crime and villainy as the Amazing Spider-Man. Spidey makes his way to the university and sneaks inside the now wrecked laboratory and into Dr. Conners' office. He notices a family photograph when a security guard rocks up and orders him to stop, and Spidey's like, "Oh, wait a second, this isn't the Virgin Mobile store, my bad." This episode is brought to you by My Comics, specifically the Custodians Agents of Cross, which I am serializing over on my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos. It's over 60 pages of pure comics for only $15, but you can see it serialized weekly over on my Patreon for as little as $2. It is a love letter to the Silver Age filled with fun characters, crazy stories, and even fake advertisements. I'm also serializing each issue of Destructo Boy, a fun sci-fi zany epic that is fit for the whole family and follows a little robot on a giant space station as he battles crime, villainy, and giant monsters and whatever threats should arise to his home. Each weekly serialized post includes commentary and annotations on the comic. I am also posting commentary tracks for the MCU, the Snyderverse, and any movies in general over at Pop Pop Popcorn, which I will be posting a audio commentary track of any movie and a follow-up discussion video. There's also behind-the-scenes progress posts of the Custodians as I am working on it, original art, and much more. Sometime later, Spidey enters the sewers after recalling the media report of that mugger who had been killed by a sewer monster, and Peter just kind of starts wandering through the tunnels when his spider sense goes off, and the lizard assaults him from beneath the water. The lizard slashes at Peter and makes horrific lizardy noises before resubmerging, and Peter tries to speak to what was once Curt Conners, but it's no use, and he's tossed into the ceiling. The lizard breaks out at him again, and Spidey narrowly avoids the razor-sharp claws. Peter backs away and pleads with Dr. Conners that he only wants to help him and that he doesn't want to fight. And then the lizard, somehow without lips, says this: "You fight." As Peter continues his peace negotiations, he notices something behind his Lacertilian lasher. The Man-Thing! The lizard attacks this horrible plant creature, but its claws become stuck within its body. The Man-Thing briefly, silently, stares at the lizard before slamming an open palm against his head. The lizard screams in painful lizard speak, and then bursts into blue flames. And when the Man-Thing removes its hand from the lizard, he is now returned into a two-armed Curt Conners. Then Spidey runs over to Curt as they watch the Man-Thing dissipate against the blue fire smoke and water of the sewer, and Spidey's like, "What is happening?" Sometime later, Peter writes an email to MJ, who is on a trip with her parents, regarding his experiences. He says that he dropped Curt Conners off at the emergency room, but he never heard anything about him on the news, so he assumes that, S.H.I.E.L.D. is up to something, I guess. Peter also returned to the sewers 3 times since that experience, trying to find whatever the fuck that was that he saw down there. But then he deletes the email and says that he'll just tell MJ when she gets back. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of what is pretty short, pretty quick little thing in there, but I've had quite a lot of people ask me in previous Ultimate Spider-Man videos, when the fuck does he meet the lizard? Because it's mentioned in an actual issue of the series, but like I said, it's not collected with anything. So here it is. Here is where Spidey met the lizard the one time it happened, and that's that. What are your thoughts on the Ultimate Lizard design? I think it's cool. It's an interesting idea. It looks weird and creepy, but I think that's just John Toddleben, his art. Otherwise, it just looks like a big iguana. It's not the best. I definitely prefer the original Steve Ditko design. I don't like when he has the snout. I prefer the flat, gross, mutated face. Like, you could tell it was still a dude. But this one's fine, I guess. It's something different. It's not like the Amazing Spider-Man movie version where he's just a big green dinosaur man. Or a Goomba, or, you know, whatever else. I can't really think of any other interesting lizard adaptations. It's either flat face, kind of crocodile alligator looking, or dinosaur man. There's no in between. Well, I guess there is. Well, no, this one isn't really in between either of those. Is it? I guess so. Dinosaur on this end, mutant man right here. He's just a fucking lizard, which is what this one is. This is the complete in between. There's only 3 possibilities that you can have when you do the lizard: dinosaur, an actual lizard, or a mutated man. It's great art by John Toddleman, especially the pages where they actually go into the sewers. Like, just the layouts are fucking great. The panels aren't actual panel borders. It's like webs and, spider webbing going across the page. It's so cool to look at. And it's a fun little one-off story. It's a one and done. It's kind of what the Marvel Team Up Ultimate series was like for the most part. It's pretty much what the normal Ultimate Team Up series is also. If for some reason, after reading through this again, it just feels very X-Files, don't you think? Like, it's a very monster of the week sort of story. I have been rewatching X-Files a lot recently, so that might be why. But the ending of, like, the truth being hidden and, like, no one knowing what happened to Curt, for some reason, my mind went straight to X-Files Season 2, Episode 1, Little Green Men, where Mulder goes to, like, Puerto Rico or someplace like that, and he's trapped in this research outpost, and there's, like, this big clashing storm outside, followed by an intense white light that begins shining in from every opening, and then there's a fucking alien in the doorway, and he wakes up and everything's normal again. He's like, what the fuck just happened to me? I don't know, just something about his experience in this just seems like something that Mulder would experience and no one would believe him. But that's really my thoughts on this. Not much else. You know, it doesn't add anything really to the Spidey mythos aside from establishing a rapport of some kind between Curt Conners and Spider-Man, Peter Parker, when he does appear in like volume 3 or 4 or something as Eddie Brock's professor, I think is what he's doing. But it's a fun little story. So as always, check out my Etsy, blaketwild.etsy.com, patreon.com/Smokey's videos, and follow me on socials at NotBlakeWild, Instagram, Blue Sky, that other one. I'm always there at NotBlakeWild. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.